Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a Learning Collective. We've taken a little bit of a hiatus, getting different guests and shows ready for you guys. So we'll be talking about that shortly and promoting it on our different social media channels. I'm Ann Wynn, marketing specialist with Risk Inc. And this morning we've got a fun, just informal sneak preview of the Learning DevCamp, which happens next week, September 14th through the 17th. And today I've got, as you can see, several of the speakers who will be at Learning DevCamp who are going to share a little bit about what their sessions are about. So I'm going to start with Mr. Ray Jimenez.
Hey, Anne, and Judy, Duncan, Kate, and all the rest of you. Good morning.
Good
Yes,
morning.
it's great to have a good morning chat with you. I like the rainbow shirt of Duncan, of course, and Spark today. So I am very excited to join you in our session in Salt Lake. No, online, I love Salt Lake because it's a nice restaurant I would have wanted to do there. I will be having a workshop on workflow learning in the context of instructional design. And the best way to define this is this: the traditional instructional design starts with instruction. Now we're starting to see a lot of growth in the awareness that indeed people can learn by experiences. Now, I'm not talking about UX, the type of component of learning experience. I'm talking about the process where learners and workers have a great opportunity to actually think for themselves, to figure out problems, to fix problems, to deal with improvements, and as they use that as a real work in terms of learning how to be learning and fixing things, and at the same time they're doing it in work situations. So the focus of my session would be about people do work, they learn by doing work. How is it that we can help them to further augment that, to facilitate that? So I'll be talking about a process, a method. I'll be sharing about 50 different thinking tools, simple tools from troubleshooting, risks analysis, the Pareto law, the five whys, and other more thinking tools like abstraction. The bottom line is this: in instructional design, we have many ways of looking at our work. One of the better ways, in my experience in practical world, is that the learners are already thinking and learning by themselves. Recognizing that gives us another opportunity to redesign our toolkit so that we can help them. So join me. I'd love to have this session, and I'm going to be having fun by myself. So it's a lot of exercises, although it's virtual, it's online. There's a lot of exercises, breakout groups, and conversations, which is primarily my style. So come and join me, and thanks for having me the chance to do this, Anne, and the rest of the team. Thank you.
Absolutely. And what day is your session? What day and time is your session, Ray?
I don't know. It's going to be in Salt Lake. I'm kidding. But 14.
I say I can find this out. I have
No,
I
that's
have
quite all
I
right.
have a schedule open.
I have this great little
Right?
picture. You can find all the information about the sessions
It's
at
about 10:30
learningdevcamp.com.
to about 4 o'clock Eastern, right?
Yeah,
So a bit confused already. There's so many things on top of each other, but you'll figure it out, right? It's so popular, DevCamp, and we'll see you there.
absolutely. Thanks, Ray. Thanks for
Sure.
joining us.
And I'll excuse myself. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
have a
Have a
great
good one.
day.
Okay, bye bye.
Thank you.
All
This is
right.
that learning by experience he was talking about. You have to really dig in, care about the material.
Exactly. Well, and as Ray mentioned, it's going online this year, obviously, because of the pandemic and COVID, and the majority of the conferences that we are all at, and that we get to see each other at, have gone virtual. And so, let's chat about that a little bit. Was that? Obviously, it's the right decision to make, but it does kind of put a damper in things, I think, a little bit, just because we enjoy seeing people in person.
Oh, for sure. I say that's a given on that one. It's hard to augment the things outside of of the trade show or the conference in a virtual way a lot of times, because it's sudden, your network tends to expand and expand through each of these conferences. We go year after year, and you get to know people, and it becomes a bit of a family reunion or a high school reunion, one conference to the next. So you do lose some of that, but certainly the things that I've seen work well, with a couple other conferences that have been canceled and moved online so far, is to have good live interactive sessions, because there's certainly value in recorded sessions and having access to those, but the life that is provided when you do have some kind of interaction, someone else watching on the other side of the screen versus talking into the computer, I think makes a big difference there. So that's a different way of working, for sure.
And Learning DevCamp has always been so much about community. That's, I think, a big strength of this particular conference. It is a fantastic, tight-knit, small community. And you can see with, how the different conferences have, been moved online, even more what the organization's priorities are. And I think it's really fantastic to see that there are going to be like the mix and mingle sessions at Learning DevCamp, that, we also have an in-person event, and that, we'll be there online as well. And that's fantastic, because of course it's more than just the conference presentations, as much as the speakers, think it's all about us. I really love how different organizations are sort of addressing all of the other aspects as well. And I'm really looking forward to see how Learning DevCamp does it.
No, I saw that in the schedule, and I thought that was really cool, right? To have the mix and mingle and make sure that everybody still has the opportunity to connect, even though it's online. And Kristen, I think I interrupted you.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, it's been such a motivation the whole time. We keep getting, speakers keep getting emails that are like, this is a core principle of Learning DevCamp. So like, even from the beginning, if we have to move this online, how will we maintain this? Now that we're moving it online, how are we going to maintain this? And that pressure on us, I think, has been really helpful to center us in that meaning of the conference.
Yeah. I was going to say that you mentioned it. What are the principles? How does it work? That's one of the things that is a little unique about the show is it's a, would you call it, half kind of create your own work or build it yourself sessions. So I know Debbie Richards has an augmented reality session. You, Kristen, have storyboarding with storyboarding in a build your own session?
Yes. So I have one where we're going to storyboard the same content in Mural, which is just a quick online whiteboarding tool, and then Twine, which is kind of an indie game development tool that's used a lot by learning designers because it's good at helping you do branching scenarios and organize things like that. And then Adobe XD, which is a very high fidelity mobile graphic designer prototyping tool that lets you similarly walk people through what an end result will look like without actually coding the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And it gives you some really helpful things if you're then putting it into an authoring tool. So maybe you're moving into Storyline, you can publish it in a way where it has all your hex codes, it has all the sizes and shapes and widths and that kind of stuff in it. So you can pretty easily port it over to Storyline then and have an idea of what variables you need to build and what you need to think about before you get into the authoring tool, which I'm a big fan of. I'm a big storyboarding person. That
sounds fun and cool. And I think, and you did a session about storyboarding, and so it sounds like you'll have a very interactive session as well, right?
Yes, and I always pull content from federal government sources because we own it, and so I was looking for examples. The topic that we're doing is actually on the plain language guidelines, which are wonderful if you've ever read them. They're just really obviously well written, but helpful. So we're going to do some things on the plain language guidelines, but I had to find an example of maybe less plain language writing to pull for an example. And it is the permitting for falconry educational sites. And it's Just like two
Sounds
paragraphs, but I've
interesting.
had so much fun working with it.
Oh, I bet. Oh my gosh. That sounds very interesting. So,
So, yeah.
And then what, you have a couple sessions about it.
I do. I have
correctly.
I have the storyboarding session where we'll go through, and that's one where you ideally won't use 3 different storyboarding tools in the process. I usually use Mural for sure. I just dump all the content in Mural. Judy's laughing because she knows I used Mural. As soon as I started meeting, like, let's open Mural. Here's the Mural link. But
this is exactly what being on a team with Kristen is like. She introduced me to Mural. I'm a convert now, and use it for a little bit of storyboarding as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I think we're interplaying our sessions because I did some similar stuff at Learning DevCamp last year, and I'm doing UX this year, and you do a lot of UX as well. So I think that there will be some complementary programming here.
Can just do the Kristen and Judy track.
There we go, the Kristen and Judy show. Hey.
But yeah, I always take stuff in Mural. I take content and I break it down into the smallest pieces on stickies and then rearrange it that way. And that helps you find what's useful and what's maybe less useful and tailor it down from there. And then usually you have to show a stakeholder something before you start building. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of time. And you can do it really low fidelity where you just want them to look at the text. Do not get distracted by images. Do not get distracted by colors. Read the text, and Twine is very good for that. And if you want them to get distracted by colors and shapes and images, then you go to Adobe XD. It's just knowing your stakeholder, what you can show them without going down rabbit holes.
Oh, absolutely. And
But
go ahead. Sorry, Jen.
Oh no, I was going to ask you, from a user testing standpoint, are you doing some of that user testing still at this storyboard design phase? Or is it really more as stakeholder development?
Yeah, this is mostly for stakeholders. This is I'm always interested in the best way to help people review things because that's such a challenge. And so really these are 3 tools. Here's basic information to get you comfortable using each of these tools, and here's the pros and cons of them. User testing, especially with the branching scenario and the XD, so Twine and XD, user testing is really helpful, or they are really helpful for user testing, but I know Judy's covering that in her session, so I don't have to.
and what a great segue. Let's talk about Judy's session.
So I have a couple as well. One is a user testing session where we're going to get more into the nuts and bolts, because I think a lot of times when we cover UX topics for e-learning, we say, oh, also, do user testing. It's great. You only need 6 people. It's so easy. Read Steve Krug's books. And all of that is true and fantastic and, absolutely guilty here as well. There's so much to cover in the field of UX that's really useful for e-learning designers and developers. But this is a session where I'm going to actually get deep into the nuts and bolts of user testing. We're going to do a user test there, which I've done this live in an in-person conference environment, so we're going to see how it works, I guess. With the, but I think at this point we have the technology, we can use it, we know how to do this. But so we're actually going to do a little mini user test so that everybody can see how it works, see what's happening on the back end, see what you can expect to actually get out of that process. The idea is that in a 1-hour session, you'll be able to go from not ever having done a user test before to having everything that you need to be reasonably confident that you know what you're doing and actually be able to go do a user test to pretty successfully. So you have the knowledge that you need and at least have experienced, from an observational perspective, a user test in action from soup to nuts. So I really like this session. I think that it's going to be fantastic. And yes, it can be with a more developed project, or it can be using prototyping tools like Twine or XD as well. So I think there'll be a lot of complementary stuff there. I'm also extending something that we've talked about in the Learning Collective before, which is the Wonder Woman Wakanda and Work session. So we're going to start talking a little bit more about that from a development perspective, how to put some of those ideas into practice. And this is the first time that we've done that. And so that's going to be, I think, pretty exciting. I'm thrilled that this is a topic that has remained on everyone's mind. And it got so much interest in the past couple of years at a lot of the different places, including Learning DevCamp last year. So we're expanding on that and taking a little bit further. And so I'm super excited about that.
Oh, that's good to hear. And you're absolutely right. I mean, it's such a timely topic, and it continues to be so, diversity and inclusion. And so I'm excited that you'll get to expand on it, and maybe we'll have you back on so you can share the expansion as well on Learning Collective. And last but never least, my friend Duncan, who I know has a couple of sessions as well.
Yeah, I've got 2 sessions. One is really more development focused. One's a little more infrastructure focused. So we're going to have a session on tools that you can use to improve learning retention, and especially leveraging some new technologies for that, because there's a lot of things that we all learned that are good fundamentals of instructional design and have good foundation in learning science, things that help people recall information, so things like spaced learning, spaced repetition, and active recall, and these things that, like I said, we all know about, but we don't often or don't necessarily focus on these as the tools in our toolbox when we begin a project. So what are some of the questions that we can ask up front? What are the things we could do to build into some kind of learning experience? And a lot of times something that's not a one-off, creating a single piece of content, but really more from a program or a longitudinal standpoint. How do you manage that process? So that's one session, and that's going to be the second one actually that I present. The first is on the changing learning ecosystem. So really looking at infrastructure that training programs, training departments roll from or expand from. Traditionally, so much of that has been kind of this monolithic schoolhouse model, right? Whether it's an actual physical school or it's a learning management system where, everyone comes to drink from the same well. But, like it was mentioned already, that's not where learning always happens, right? There's so many other places there. And what is critical from an insight standpoint to be able to, to capture. So, let's move things like, that central classroom, the central LMS, out of the middle of the picture and say, what are all the other elements? So if you have simulators, if you have gaming, if you have things like AR and VR elements, not only how do you tether those things together so that everything we offer isn't a course or a module, right? There are other things that happen, and then what do you start thinking about when it comes to the data you want to capture in those different pieces? Because we'll kind of wrap up this session with a very high level look at the Department of Defense's total learning architecture, where their goal ultimately is to take someone that completes an ASVAB in 9th grade, 10th grade, and be able to manage their career through their period of service and into civilian life after. And that means that all of the things they do, whether it's field activities, it's classroom training, it's college courses that they're taking, we have to have a holistic view of. We have to have some way of looking at those folks, and more importantly, probably making recommendations for where they go from here, right? So, so that's what we'll be looking at there in the changing ecosystem. So, and one of those that is always changing. So everything that I say can absolutely be challenged. So always fun.
It could change in a heartbeat, right?
That's right.
So, and if I'm not mistaken, all of the sessions are live. There are no recorded ones.
I believe that's right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So,
and then I have been tickering this learningdevcamp.com. So that's where you can find all of the information and, of course, the session details and the schedule as to who is speaking when. And you're still able to register, I found out. I went on there last night just to make sure that I could get the deadline. And it looks like the deadline to register is September 14th, which is actually the first day. And there are some full day workshops on that day, if I'm not mistaken, with the likes of Megan Torrens. Oh my gosh, who else? I think Joey Dirksen is there on the first day. So some big heavy hitter names in our industry.
Yeah, I think the whole first.
What's that, Kristen?
Ray has one the first day. He has a full day workshop.
His first day. Oh, see, I asked him what his schedule was. So what are you guys most looking forward to? I'm sure that there are other folks' sessions that you are looking forward to seeing as well.
I am definitely going to see Judy's, because that is a topic. User testing is one of the many things that instructional designers know that they're supposed to be doing, but just feel like, oh crap, I don't want to learn. Like, I'm not a UX designer. I can't do that. That's so far beyond my skill set, which is already very broad. And so making that kind of a bridging that for people, saying this is a thing. It's not rocket science. It is an integral part of our job, and it's doable. It's not going to take you another month on your timeline. It's not going to, blow up all of your ideas. It's not going to send users in at the last minute saying, actually, you should have started with X and you've started with Y, and we hate all of this, and go back to the drawing board.
Exactly. Wouldn't you rather be able to pivot and make those changes as you're still developing the final product, final solution? I mean, we have the same issue with marketing too, right? Like, nobody wants to do user testing, but it'll save you so much work in the long run.
Right. And that's last year, the presentation that I did for Learning DevCamp was in a similar vein of analysis seems daunting, but it doesn't have to be that daunting. And it just do it, and it'll make your life easier. And same with user testing, just do it. And you'll find out that you can, and then it makes life a little easier.
There's your tagline, Judy. Just do it.
Just do it. No copyright issue there.
Yeah.
I've heard this before.
Rumor.
So what are some of the other sessions or some of the other things you're looking forward to with Learning DevCamp this year, especially with it being in a virtual setting?
So I definitely am going to tune in to Julie's to make sure that if no other reason than to make sure that we're fitting together well with the UX, the whole day of UX topics and my user testing. She always brings value. She always has really great, well thought out, well researched things to say, and ways to help people skill up. So that's a definite priority for me. I'm also seeing that Jessica Jackson from Torrance has a session on racial equity, which I guess that this is everybody has their interests, but this is a definite one for me, and I think I would really love to hear what she has to say. She's somebody I've gotten to know a little bit through the XAPI cohort, and I think that she'll bring a lot of value to that conversation. I, of course, am going to pop into your session, Kristen, and make sure that I'm using Twine correctly. No, I'm just kidding. Or actually,
that I am.
Mural. I always need more tips, so I absolutely will. We'll check that out, and then probably whatever, as I suspect a lot of people will, just whatever I have time for, and what else catches my eye on the schedule. I'm very much I'm going to decide where to go in the spur of the moment sort of conference person, whether it's online or in person. So I always have a couple of solid rocks. I want to go to this session for sure, but everything else will be catch as catch can likely, especially since it's an online one. It's a little bit different for everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say I think that's the convenient part of it being online is you're able to hop into a session at the last minute instead of having to run clear across the campus or
make it to
this,
Valencia before or whatever. So yeah.
So Duncan, what are
I'd say one of the things I'm looking forward to is the campfire sessions. So each afternoon, there's more of a collaborative group session. The first one of those on the 15th is on learning experience creation and development tools. So, from what's new and what's out there and what's working. And often you find in those kind of sessions, like Chris had said with using Mural and Twine and XD, that someone says, gosh, this is a great tool for this, or this is a great tool for that, and to be able to apply those. I find lots of fun apps that way. At different conferences. The second day is learning developer demos with tips and tricks. So that should be a good one to take a look at what different folks are doing there in those more, like I said, campfire sessions. Outside of that, just recently got involved with an AR VR project. So I want to make sure I focus a bit on, I think Debbie Richards has 2 different sessions on AR VR. There are also, and I'm going to neglect the names, but there are 2 sessions on accessibility and inclusiveness for training. So those 2, I think, are always critical elements that we need to make sure that we're evaluating, especially those of us that are more I'm less on the development side as the infrastructure kind of side there. So making sure we're sensitive to what someone's abilities are and how you provide equal access to to learning, I think is critical. Something we need to all focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
Another one in the vein of, we know we're supposed to, but sometimes people think the bar is too high, they can't do it. And so anything that opens that up.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's very encouraging to see that there are these conversations in the learning and development space, and that people are being more mindful about inclusion and diversity and accessibility. So I think it's really great that it's part of the conference, and I hope that for other conferences we'll see similar sessions and along the same vein. And so tell me a little bit more about this Iron DevCamp. I keep hearing about this. Is it like Iron Dev?
I think we have another thing to talk about. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to see other people's work as well. So Duncan and I are hosting Iron Dev, which is something that's happened at Learning DevCamp before, although not for a few years. And basically, it's an opportunity to for others to show their work, to get some feedback from their peers and from professionals. And I believe there still is time to submit. I want to say through the end of this week, although as a host, I have a pretty sketchy grasp on the dates right now. Anyway, there definitely still is room for us to have more submissions to show. And so, we would love to see more of people's ideas for helping people do professional development to transition into delivering content online. That's sort of the theme. That's the theme of Iron Dev, as it is the theme of a lot of people's careers this year. And so everything, whether you want to build a course, a very traditional sort of a presentational or interactive course, or you want to make a job aid, things are not judged in terms of the scale of solution that they are. So all of that information is there on the website, I think. Oh, thank you, Duncan. You just linked it. It's a fantastic opportunity to get some work of yours out there, get some feedback, contribute to the conversation in the community about how we create things. And of course, this topic is so relevant to us this year. I hope and I think. So all part of the larger conversation. I'm really looking forward to seeing some solutions that others create.
Yep. And on top of that, there are fabulous prizes to win for your submission. But like you mentioned, one of the things that I want to really be sensitive to when we started coming up with this prompt is one, having something that is timely and and applicable there, so we're not creating resources that that would just sit on the shelf. Give an opportunity. Even if someone wants to build something from a portfolio kind of piece standpoint, but even beyond that, making sure that we were not putting a lot of meets and bounds on the requirements, so that you really do have some freedom to say, gosh, what's the solution that I want to put together, in this case? And it may be very different, right? Because again, we're not necessarily focused exclusively on a corporate environment or exclusively focused on a academic environment. So people will bring in very different, I think, backgrounds and perspectives there that will be fun to see.
Well, it absolutely sounds fun. And so there it is, folks, the URL for Iron Dev. I called it Iron Dev Camp. So Iron Dev, it makes me think of Iron Chefs, right? And so is there only going to be one, there can only be one. A little bit like Iron Chefs and Highlander. Sorry, my little nerd, whatever's coming out there. But you guys still submit, as Judy and Duncan both said. So submission is till the end of this week. And for all of the information, there is always learningdevcamp.com, where you can find everything you need to know. And the schedule and the registration is also on there. And again, the deadline to register is September 14th, which is next Monday. And Jason Bickle is the LDC director. And here's his info, should you have any questions.
Shout out to Jason, by the way. He does such a great job with this conference, such a great job building this community. And obviously none of it would exist if not for him. So this year has been quite the ride. So he deserves lots of praise for keeping this going and making it happen.
Geez, anyone who is tasked with meeting our conference organization this year has made their money. It is, or probably never make the money back on it. It has been an interesting and brutal year in some ways, but the ability to pivot the way that people have and different groups have has been fantastic. I think one of the things that we neglected going through is to talk about the two keynotes as well. So Tuesday, the first day was the workshops, but Tuesday, I think, is Julie Dirksen talking about complex skills development. So methods for helping develop complex skills in your students, employees, whatever the case is there. And then Jane Bozarth is the next day, and Dr. Jane is presenting on showing your work. Yeah. So
both of those look fantastic. These are very reliable topics. These people are the experts in their fields, and I think those are going to be worth the price of admission just alone.
Yeah,
that's right. Because Jane has a book that's "Show Your Work," the payoff of working out loud. So, interesting compliment there.
And she's been teasing one of her just breakout sessions, which is, I don't know the name of it. It is Misbegotten Ideas and along that line.
Yes, I have heard her mention this, or have seen her mention it, but yeah.
I'm sure it will be a passionate session.
Yeah.
And those both sound wonderful, and again, both highly regarded experts in L&D, and so you guys are going to have some fun with some different sessions and learning and collaboration at its best, which is the theme for Learning DevCamp. So I appreciate that that theme, and it carries overall throughout the sessions and just the different activities and things. It sounds like that is planned. So, any final thoughts aside from seeing everybody in person?
Would love to see you in Salt Lake.
I would love to get out of Portland to the clear air of Salt Lake right about now for sure. But unfortunately, that's not in the cards this year. But I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody online.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, once again, everybody, learningdevcamp.com for all of the information that you want to find out about this conference, for registration, for the schedule, for the sessions, for the speakers. Be sure to check it out. And I want to thank you both, Judy and Kristen, for jumping on. Duncan, I just make, do it.
Go over the next topic.
But no, thank you, Duncan. And thank you all for having this conversation, because I definitely wanted to make sure that we gave LDC a little more love and get everybody involved and go check out the conference.
Thank you
Absolutely.
very much.
Thank you, Ann.
Everybody have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.